This is You're Probably Right. Entertainment first, everything else is just bonus. Opinions, all ours. Sometimes backed by research, but never the final word. There are always exceptions, so take it with a grain of salt and a slight dusting of chili powder. If something in this episode resonates with you or you want to reach out directly, you can email the show at yprpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find the podcast on Facebook. Just search You're Probably Right podcast and the page should come up. And if you are listening somewhere other than Spotify, you can find the show there as well. Just search You're Probably Right and follow the podcast so new episodes show up automatically. All right, let's get into it.
Hey, yo, what's up? This is MCM, and you are listening to You're Probably Right podcast. I got a good one for you guys. Here's the funny thing, though. Last night, I hardly slept. And I thought I had like this amazing idea. And it was, and it is, in a sense. I came up with 10 relationship patterns that pain creates. And I was like, all right, man, I'm gonna record this and it's gonna be amazing. It's like a new framework. I don't know why. I didn't even know I was a framework type of person until I created that CASA framework. I had one episode about it, and I thought I was gonna really, really get deep into it, and it's like I just left it kind of where it is. There is an episode about it. Maybe you should check it out if you want to. But anyways, the funny thing is, because I stayed up until about 4:45 in the morning, thinking I'm doing this thing. It was a Saturday, and it was, today's Sunday, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and it had all my energy for about 2 to 3 hours, and I came up with all these different types, I guess, different names for them. I won't even get into the names because maybe one day I will go back. That would have been, I guess, the starting pod for this, I guess, kind of a series. But I wanted to really look into it and really whittle it down. And I've whittled it down, I think, as good as I can. I don't know how great this is going to be, but I think this is going to be a different episode. And if this one is, then I have planned already 4. Is it 4? Yeah, 4 behind it. Just wondering where this other one is. Did I even... Oh, I didn't actually make it into it. It's sitting there anyway. It's ready to go. But anyway, I just wanted to welcome everybody to this. I guess this is, again, You're Probably Right podcast. I am your host, Michael. I am your host, MCM. However you want to put it, that's me. And just remember, every episode is for entertainment purposes only. This is not a Christian podcast per se, but it is a podcast by a Christian, a Bible-believing Christian. And not that I'm perfect, and who is, but I'm moving on to perfection, and, I am justified by faith. I am in Christ. Still got a lot of learning to do, even at my age. And here we go. Let me just pull this up here. Hopefully it reads well, because as many people who know that are generally here at my podcast, I go off script often, but let's see. Let's see. All right. Let's see if I can pull this up. I pulled up the wrong one. Oh, wait. Hold on a second. Okay, that's why. Okay, I just need to save this. Just 1 second, guys. Remember how this podcast goes, just in case, if you're here for the first time, which you very well could be here for the first time. This podcast, again, is for entertainment purposes only, but it also is a podcast where hopefully I can paint you some vivid pictures. Hopefully I can jog your memory, and hopefully you can see yourself in a looking glass, or as they now call it, a mirror, and that it'll do you some good. You know. Well, let's see. Is this? Oh, okay, it is. Let me just put it. Replace it. Why would I want to replace it? Okay, I didn't need. I actually saved it. I was thinking about the fifth one. I'm like ahead of the game here, guys. All right. Remember, this is long form, so long form doesn't mean I'm here trying to waste your time, but long form also means that sometimes I do think out loud. All right. This episode is called How Pain Reshapes Love. And it should answer what's happening. I want to start with one sentence. Pain does not just hurt people. It reshapes how they love. That is the center of this whole episode. Most people think pain leaves behind one thing: hurt, sadness, disappointment, distrust. But I think it often leaves something else behind too. It leaves behind rule. Private rules, protective rules, rules people don't always realize they are still living by. Rules like, do not trust too quickly. Do not need too much. Do not let someone have that much access to you again. Remember, you've been hurt. Become useful enough, attractive enough, easy enough, needed enough, and maybe you will not get hurt the same way twice. It's easy to say, right? If you've been hurt a few times. You're like, what about us? That is how pain becomes pattern. And once pain becomes pattern, people stop recognizing it as pain. They start calling it maturity, boundaries, standards, caution, independence, wisdom, or just, this is how I am. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes it is pain with better branding. And if that pain goes unexamined, it doesn't stay in the past, it starts shaping the next relationship. That is what this episode's about, just simply and plainly. Not diagnosing people, not creating a personal test, not claiming a new science of love, because everybody seems to have a new science and most people are doing it within a minute. Top 10, top 7, all that stuff. I try not to do it that much, and if I do it, it's usually where it comes off of maybe another episode, but I try not to honestly do it, and that's why I have these long forms, and that's why I always tell people, imagine we're sitting at a coffee table in, like, not coffee table. We're sitting at like a table, drinking coffee, or we're sitting on the couch together, or if you're in Toronto, maybe we're driving all the way to London. Maybe we have to pop a couple in because it's going to take a few episodes to get there. But just a long, meaningful, and maybe meaningless ride in that we're just out here experiencing life together. As I said, maybe it's just us walking a dog, or maybe just walking each other. Maybe we wanted to just sit down and chill out on a bench somewhere in a park and watch kids play. or something, or watch the ducks swim or feed the ducks, just hanging out. And while we do that, we try to just keep each other company, and hopefully we have each other reflect on where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. So just as I kind of get you there, hopefully you're feeling what I'm feeling. And that's just, we're just at peace chilling. I really think that these episodes are good for a person to listen to. I mean, depending on the subject matter, by yourself, maybe late at night, or maybe you're just winding down from work, or you're on your way to work, or on your way from work, maybe on the subway, bus, car, electric e-bike, or whatever. All right. So I'm not claiming a new science on love. This is a plain language framework for understanding how unresolved pain can quietly reorganize the way people relate to others, right? Or just in general, just how people relate. And I want you to listen in two directions. Listen for the people you have loved, and listen for yourself. Because the most useful question here is not just who hurt me. It's also, what did pain teach me to become in love? Now, one important boundary before we go further. Not every difficult relationship behavior comes from pain. Some of it comes from selfishness, some from immaturity, some from manipulation, some from low interest, some from poor character, and some from simple incompatibility. And I know a lot of the new, so-called new, because I try to make sure that my podcast is evergreen, concepts have, nobody's at fault and everybody loves, and it doesn't mean you're bad. And sometimes, and a lot of time, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing like total on purpose wickedness, or people were doing on purpose wickedness to you, but it resulted that way. And sometimes the person has intent. So this framework is not here to excuse bad behavior. It is here to help explain one specific thing. What happens when an old wound quietly starts writing new rules? And in my view, that usually shows up in four broad ways. As I said before, I had 10. And I tried to, I think I started with 7, honestly, and I went up to 10, and then I dropped down to 4. Because I realized some of them were redundant. Okay. So some people withdraw. Some people try to control. Some people compensate. And some people start losing themselves to preserve connection. And that's where we're going. Okay? So some people withdraw. Some people try to control. Some people compensate, and some people lose themselves trying to preserve connection. So pain teaches. Listen, one of the biggest misunderstandings about emotional pain is that people think it leaves behind only feeling. But pain leaves behind conclusion. A betrayal teaches something. A humiliation teaches something, trust me. An abandonment teaches something. A cold relationship teaches something. A one-sided love teaches something. Pain says, be less open, right? You don't get hurt again, right? Needless, need less, reveal less, trust slower, control more, give more, adapt more, leave first, and stay guarded. And you've heard it, and you might have said it in your own mind. Maybe you've said it to your friends as you've had conversations, some of these things. You've said, I'm gonna need less. I'm gonna be less needy. I'm gonna not tell so much about my personal story. I'm gonna trust slower and not maybe go and hang out at somebody's house for the first time of meeting them. Or maybe I'm gonna control where our conversations go, or where our relationship goes, or how fast we do this or that or whatever, or how often we talk. Maybe I'm gonna give more, right? And if anything, I'm gonna leave first before I can be hurt. And I'm gonna stay guarded. And this should kind of put me in some sort of a protective, bubble wrapped type of relationship to protect myself. And if those lessons go unchallenged, they stop feeling like reactions. They start feeling like identity. And that is why so many people say things like, I'm just careful now. I just know my worth now. I just don't open easily. I'm just a giver. I'm just independent. I'm just low maintenance. I've heard those, and I've heard some of that, honestly, from one person. Same individual say all of that sometimes. Again, sometimes those things are real, but sometimes those are protective strategies that have been repeated long enough to feel like your actual personality. And that's important. So let me say it again in a slightly different way. A pattern is often it's just pain repeated long enough to feel normal and formally you. And once it feels normal, nobody questions it. The person doing it doesn't question it. The people around them often romanticize it. The culture may even praise it. And that is how old pain keeps entering new love without being named. So let me make it visible. Withdrawal. Withdrawal happens when pain teaches a person that closeness is dangerous. Not always dramatic danger, right? Sometimes just emotional cost, exposure, the risk of being hurt, rejected, disappointed, overwhelmed, or left. So the person starts protecting themselves through distance. They pull back. They become harder to reach. They shut down emotionally, or they never really open up to begin with. The deeper logic sounds like this. If I let this matter too much, I could get hurt again. Now, let me give you a few familiar expressions of withdrawal. And here's where I said I had 10. First one, the vanisher. This is the person who seems present enough in the beginning. They text, they connect, they show warmth. There is movement, there is possibility. But when emotional depth begins to rise, something changes. They thin out. Replies slow down. Access, it just changes. Warmth cools. They become harder to reach just as the bond just starts to matter. And if you've experienced that, I have, it can leave you trapped in confusion because you're like, everything was going good. Nothing is always dramatic enough to name clearly, though. It's not always a clean ending. Sometimes it's an emotional fade. It's like you were all the way up here on cloud 9, and all of a sudden everything just kind of fades down to 3. And if it's happening to you, you kind of like wondering, like, what the heck? Is it that they found somebody else, or somebody old came back, or like what's going on? Doesn't make any sense. We were moving forward. There was movement. And emotional fades are powerful because they keep the other person asking questions instead of accepting reality. You're kind of bewildered. You're off center. You knocked off your square, some would say, in a fight. And then there's the closed book. This is different. The closed book is not the person who opens and then retreats. It is the person who never really enters. They may be kind, they may be decent, they may stay around, but real emotion or real emotional entry never happens. Somewhere underneath, a conclusion has already been made. Deep love costs too much. Needing people is dangerous. I can stay near, but I can't afford to be open. So the relationship remains structurally present, but emotionally sealed. Then there's the armor bearer. Now, the armor bearer, this one is subtle. The armor bearer may stay in the relationship. They may not disappear. They may even be loyal in a practical way or practical ways. But emotionally, they stay suited up. They let enough in to maintain the structure of love, but not enough to fully risk themselves inside. So the other person often experiences a very specific loneliness. I am with you, but I still can't reach you. That is what emotional armor does. Now, what does withdrawal protect against? It protects against rejection, dependence, humiliation, disappointment, the risk of needing someone who may not stay. And what does that cost? Well, it costs intimacy. It creates relationships where One person is constantly trying to get through a door that the other person keeps quietly closed. And one of the saddest parts of withdrawal is the strategy that protects the person from deep hurt also protects them from the very closeness that they may actually need to heal. So let me just make that sharper. Not every quiet person is deep. Not every distant person is wise. Not every unreadable person is mysterious. Sometimes they are just defended. Throw you off the trail for sure. And that matters because people often romanticize defended people. They call it, strength, quiet strength. They self-containment, maturity, peace. Maybe they have boundaries, you'll say. They don't need to do or have anything specifically. But distance is not always peace. Sometimes it's pain that learned how to be quiet. They stay quiet, maybe they won't hurt as much in the long run or in the short term. So what does healing look like here? Healing for withdrawal means learning to stay present, not becoming instantly expressive, not becoming emotionally dramatic, but just learning to stay. To stay in the conversation, to stay reachable, to stay present when closeness activates fear. To stop treating intimacy like a threat to survive. So the short version is, withdrawal heals by staying. Control. Control happens when pain makes uncertainty feel unbearable. The person may still want love. They may still pursue it. They may still enjoy connection, but they want it on terms that keep them from feeling exposed, powerless, or fully at risk. So they manage. They manage pace and access, options, timing, emotional leverage, how much uncertainty they're willing to feel. The deeper logic sounds like this. If I control the conditions, I reduce the risk. Now, control does not always look controlling in the obvious sense. Sometimes it looks selective. It looks measured, strategic, discerning, and even attractive. But under the surface, love is being managed instead of freely entered. And you got the collector. This is the clearest example. The collector keeps people in orbit. Not always as formal or as a formal relationship. Most of the time, it's a lot of the time undefined, really. It's just a thing. That's when, a lot of people come up with this situationships and stuff like that. Sometimes as emotional backups, right? Loose possibilities. Who knows where we may go? Who knows if we will end up this way, or who knows if we'll do that, or if we'll ever do this? Loose possibilities, unfinished options, sometimes many open doors. Sometimes when you have too many open doors, you close doors at the same time. Think about it. There is always a little extra psychology or psychological, I should say, insurance. Why? Because full choice creates vulnerability, but a field of options, a plethora, creates insulation. If one bond fails, there's other nearby. If one person pulls away, the self does not feel completely dropped. If closeness becomes threatening, attention can be redistributed instead of deeply risked. And that's not peace. That is emotional risk spreading. It's kind of just hedging your bets. The almost chooser. There is another version of control that many people know well. The person who likes possibility more than decision. They enjoy the warmth of connection, the hope, the build, the maybe. But once the relationship starts requiring real closeness, they stall. They hover in almost. We're almost something, right? Almost committed, almost clear, almost open, and almost in. And almost can waste years of someone's life. Because something was built there. Maybe there's been many more experiences there than anywhere else. But it's still almost. The pursuer who fades at responsibility. Another version comes alive in pursuit but fades in stewardship. The chase feels exciting. The responsibility feels heavy. Winning attention feels alive, so we look for it. Sustaining mutuality feels costly. Now, yes, this can be simple ego or immaturity, but in pain-shaped form, well, movement can feel safer than commitment because it lets the person stay activated without having to become fully vulnerable. And that's why you got people who move around. Now, what does control protect against? Well, control protects against uncertainty, exposure, the fear of having no exit, the fear of needing someone more than they need you, the terror of standing in mutual love without any leverage. And what does it cost? It turns love into management. The other person ends up feeling tested, rationed, suspended, or half let in. Wanted enough to stay engaged, not chosen enough to feel safe in it. And that creates a very specific form of suffering. That's right, suffering. Being enough to hope, but not close enough to stand on solid ground. So they never get their bearings. They're never feeling stable. They're never comfortable in their own shoes in that situation. And therefore, they're generally not themselves fully. So let me say this core line here. Control tries to keep uncertainty low, but it often keeps intimacy low too. And once again, the culture often helps hide this. Control gets called standards, discernment, protecting your peace, keeping your options open, and not settling. Sometimes those things are real, but sometimes control just is just fear trying to stay in a safer position. So what does healing look like? Healing for control means learning to tolerate uncertainty without organizing love around leverage. It means choosing more clearly, telling the truth sooner, not using open doors as emotional insurance, not needing to manage every variable before allowing closeness. So the short version is control heals by loosening. Compensation happens when pain teaches a person who I am may not be enough. So instead of protecting themselves through distance or control, they try to secure love through value. So they give more, provide more, rescue more, perform more, solve more, carry more. They try to become too useful, too needed, too valuable to lose. They try. The deeper logic sounds like this: if I added enough value, maybe I'll be safe. I know something about this. Now, this one of this is one of the hardest patterns to spot because it often looks admirable or admirable. It can look like generosity, loyalty, devotion, responsibility, being a provider, being all in. But you've been hurt too. Sometimes it's those things. But in pain shaped form, generosity becomes strategy. We have the purchaser. Let me get through all these. Why not? So remember, these are all in like 4 families, but these are all the different, I guess, nuances inside of each of those. This is the clearest example. And purchase doesn't mean only money. A person can try to purchase safety with money, gifts, problem solving, constant availability, rescue, stability, emotional labor, and being indispensable. The private hope is if I'm useful enough, needed enough, impressive enough, supportive enough, maybe I will not be left. This often happens in people who learned very early or very deeply that love had to be earned. That's how I learned. I'm going to be straight up with you guys. This is me to a T at some point in my life. I'm not going to say I'm there now, but yeah. That it came more easily, right? When they were helping. Maybe you were bullied. So you think you're a helper. So you carry more, you rescue more, you perform more, making themselves beneficial. So they don't rest in love. They work for it. And that can become entirely your whole identity. The strong one, the dependable one, the one who always shows up, the one who handles everything, the one who makes life easier for everyone else. Now, here's the cost. The person may be needed, right? But still not feel safe. They may be praised, but still not feel secure. They may be relied on, but still feel profoundly replaceable. Why? Because usefulness and love are not the same thing. So let me give you the clean line here. Needed is not the same as loved. A lot of people need that line because many people have built their whole relational worth around being needed. And the day they are not needed, right? They panic. Not because they lost a task, but because they are no longer sure they are loved or lovable even without a function. And that's what compensation does. They overcompensate, right? It turns love into a private bargain. I will give, and then maybe I'll be safe. But love can't become secure through endless performance. And I mean, how much can you perform? You can exhaust yourself trying. You can't build deep safety on a system of constant providing. It's just not practical. How much do you have to give? And once again, this gets mislabeled. It gets called generosity. It gets called devotion, loyalty, maturity, being selfless. Sometimes it is that. But sometimes it's also your fair working overtime. So what does healing look like here? Healing for compensation means learning to separate worth from usefulness. It means allowing care to be generous without turning it into a strategy to buy security. It means resting from proving, resting from overfunctioning, resting from performing love instead of living in it. So the short version, compensation heals by resting. Losing yourself. Losing yourself happens when pain teaches a person that authenticity costs too much. That shows up fully as themselves may that showing up fully, as their self or as themselves may threaten the bond. If you just kind of just give you, that's me. So instead of pulling away, and instead of controlling, and instead of earning love through performance, they start adapting themselves. They people please. They shapeshift. They swallow needs. They soften too far. They become easier to keep. The deeper logic sounds like this. If I show up as I really am, I may lose love. This pattern is painful because it often looks kind. It can look like being understanding, easygoing, flexible, supportive, sweet and nice, low maintenance. You don't let me do anything for you. I don't know what to do for you. You have everything and you do everything yourself and you do everything for me, you know? And sometimes it's maturity, but sometimes it's just self-erasure. Then we have the chameleon. So we're still giving you all the different ones, right? But before I just had them as single. things, if you understand. This is the clearest form. The chameleon reads the room, reads the person, reads what is wanted, and then adapts. They become more agreeable, more pleasing, less disruptive, more of whatever the relationship seems to reward. At first, this looks like compatibility. He's like, oh, you like that too? I like vanilla ice cream. I like corn. It can sound like that, right? We just fit easily, right? We just have this easy connection like puzzle pieces, yin and yang and all that. There's no conflict, not arguing all the time. It's so easy to be with. And sometimes that is true. Sometimes one person is doing invisible internal bending all day long just to pull that off. And that does not feel like conflict at first, right? It feels like flow because there's one person who's just literally just flowing and doing what they normally do. And somehow the other person is just kind of playing their position, you know, until the self begins to disappear. And then there's tender openness that bruises easily. There is also a softer form here. A person remains open to love, but old pain is still so active that every new bond feels dangerous. A delayed text feels huge. A tone shift feels like rejection. A little distance feels like the collapse is here. And that is not exactly the same as the chameleon, but it lives pretty close to it. In both cases, the self becomes unstable under relational threat. And the cost is high, it's profound. Because this pattern reverses connection by sacrificing authenticity. You know, you're wearing a mask, as I've talked about before. The person stays connected, but no longer feels fully present as themselves inside the bond. So, here is the line that matters most in this section. You cannot feel fully loved where you are not fully present as your full self. That is the heartbreak. A person can be chosen, wanted, and included and still feel lonely because they know the version being loved is the adapted version, the edited version, not the whole self. It can't be the whole self because that's not what they're presenting. And they're not presenting it because they don't want to lose connection. And that creates resentment. It creates anxiety, exhaustion, identity confusion. Who am I? And again, it gets mislabeled. It gets called love, patience, being easy, being understanding. And sometimes it is, right? But sometimes it's fear that learned to smile and cooperate, be agreeable. So what does healing look like here? Healing for losing yourself means returning to self. Return to yourself. Not becoming hard or toxic, as I've talked about before. Not becoming selfish, for revenge, not swinging to the opposite extreme. Again, as I said, not being toxic. It means becoming real again. You name what is true, saying what you need, letting preference exist. Don't be wishy-washy. Don't be spineless. Call it out if you see it. If you see somebody being rude or stank, you can say it. You can say it politely, but it is what it is. And if you have a need for something or a desire for something, put it out there. Allowing the real self to remain in the room, even when the connection matters, but you gotta be authentic. So the short version is, losing yourself heals by returning to yourself. What people keep misreading. One reason these patterns survive is that they often get renamed. People do not call them what they are, they call them prettier things. Withdrawal gets called peace, control gets called standards, compensation gets called generosity, losing yourself gets called love. And that is how pain hides. So here are a few corrections. Not every boundary is wisdom. Sometimes it's just armor. Not every generous person is secure. Sometimes they are bargaining for their safety. Not every intense connection is actually intimacy. Sometimes it is unresolved pain reacting to unresolved pain. Not every unreadable person is actually deep. Sometimes they are defeated. They don't even know what to do. Not every easygoing person is actually peaceful. Sometimes they have learned to disappear, to keep the bond, to stay in the room. Those are important corrections because people stay trapped in pain-shaped relationships when they keep flattering the pattern instead of naming it. Sometimes the most dangerous relationship patterns are not the ones that look obviously ugly. Sometimes they are the ones that look admirable from the outside and quietly starve people on the inside. The inward turn. Now I want to turn the whole framework inward. Because the strongest use of this is not, now I understand my ex. Hopefully, the strongest use is, now I can see what pain trained me to do. So here are the questions that matter. Ready? You might want to write these down. And I mean, if you're just chilling, it's okay. You can pause, go grab something, or you can text it to yourself. Okay. Where do I withdraw too quickly? Where do I try to control? What am I afraid to feel? Where do I overgive because I do not trust that I am enough? Where do I adapt myself so much that I stop feeling real? So maybe even more directly, what have I been calling wisdom that is really just fear? What have I been calling maturity that is really just armor? What have I been calling love that is really just adaptation? Those are uncomfortable questions, but they are better than confusion. Because healing is not just learning who hurt you, healing is learning what the hurt taught you to become and deciding that old pain does not get to write the rules for the new love forever. Let me close this off. So let's come back to the sentence we started with. Pain does not just hurt people, it reshapes how they love. Some people withdraw, some people control, some people compensate, and some people lose themselves. And that doesn't make a person evil, but those patterns go unnamed. But if they do, I should say, they get repeated. And when they get repeated, the next relationship often pays for the last one. And that's the real danger. Not just that people get hurt in love, but that they keep loving from adaptation instead of healing. And listen, the point of this framework is not to label people necessarily. It's just making you more identifiable, I guess, in these things. Maybe you see yourself in more than one of these places. I don't know. But it's actually to help people recognize, right, when protection has started pretending to be love. Because once that becomes visible, something else becomes possible. You can stay where you used to flee, loosen where you used to have control. You can rest where you used to perform. Just be happy and be naturally in your own self, in your own skin. Return to yourself where you used to disappear. And that's where change begins. So the wound may come from your childhood or from an old relationship or just old in general. The pattern may be something that you've been doing. It may be current. But the good news is the pattern is not permanent. All right, guys, until next time. And I will tell you where we're going to be next time. Next episode will be from this one, of course. After the pattern, what healing actually looks like in love. And what do you do now? Okay. Hopefully this was educational in some way. If it was, and if it seems like this might help you, again, you can email me or email the pod at yprpodcast@gmail.com. Let me know what you're thinking, or maybe something you want me to cover. It's kind of weird because this pod has been going on for 5 years now, and I'm slowly starting to catch my bearing. And maybe it's because I'm an introvert, maybe it's because I've been a closed off person. Maybe it's because I've been someone trying to, I don't know, overcompensate for all kinds of things that maybe have happened in my past, and as much as I'm here sharing this, and again, these are my thoughts that I put together to try to explain a lot, how pain reshapes love, and the things that we do to compensate for the pain that we feel and moving into another relationship. And hopefully if you have felt, well, not hopefully you felt pain, but hopefully if you have felt pain, that you actually see yourself in some of the dynamics that I've been talking about. Anyhow, until next time, I am Michael, MCM, as I've been calling myself all this time on this podcast. And until next time, this is You're Probably Right. Take care. That was good. I think so. Don't you think so?
Hey, come check out You're Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 ducks. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.